My name's Eric. I'm from CrowdStrike. I'm here to talk about how eCrime adversaries use legitimate remote management tools. Oh, and it actually works. All right, let's start with a little bit of background on these tools. So what are these? They're sometimes called remote management and monitoring tools, or RMM tools. These are legitimate remote administration software offered by commercial vendors, and they're used by IT teams, MSSPs, and others for monitoring endpoints, deploying patches and hotfixes, and troubleshooting issues that users report. Almost every vendor has a free version that you or I or anyone can go download from their website, and there are numerous such vendors. I've listed some of the more common ones on this slide, but as it turned out in my research, there are many, many other more obscure ones. The key advantage of these tools is not only do they offer remote administration capability and can be obtained for free, but they're not blocked by most security software precisely because they are needed by enterprise IT teams for legitimate business purposes. And it's that lack of prevention and detection that eCrime actors and other adversaries exploit. In fact, based on Falcon Overwatch telemetry, we saw a near doubling in incidents involving RMM tools in 2023 as compared with 2022, as you see on this slide. And this trend has only accelerated into 2024. When last I checked, we had over 600 incidents so far in 2024. I've listed some of the most commonly seen RMM tools on this slide: AnyDesk, Atera, ConnectWise, Screen Connect, you're probably all familiar with, but as I mentioned, there are many other obscure ones that we have seen as well. I'd like to turn now to a couple different case studies that highlight some examples of eCrime actors using RMM tools. Let's start with everyone's favorite adversary, Scattered Spider. This is an extraordinarily aggressive adversary that conducts prolific SMS phishing and vishing campaigns, which direct users to landing pages to capture authentication credentials, primarily for SSO, VPN, remote access. And they also socially engineer help desk users to give up those creds. They can defeat phone-based MFA with SIM swapping and MFA notification fatigue. Once they authenticate to your environment, they will frequently drop a panoply of RMM tools, including several more uncommon ones that I've listed there on that slide, as you see. One of the interesting ways that Scattered Spider deploys RMM tools is by compromising the admin panels for legitimate EDR tools. So they already have credentials. They authenticate to the EDR admin panel, and basically all EDR tools also offer native remote shell capability, so they can go run shell commands on whatever system they want to, and they run commands that, of course, install an RMM tool to give them additional access. At a more basic level, sometimes they will literally just spin up a web browser, point it to the vendor website, download the installer, and run the installer, and that usually works just fine. They've also deployed RMM tools using Microsoft Azure run commands, which can run shell commands on your VMs, or Microsoft Intune. SchefSpider is an interesting lower volume eCrime adversary. They begin their campaigns by contacting companies via public sales leader or contact forms. They pretend to be a customer interested in the company's products. They provide an email address. The company responds to the email believing that they're engaging with a customer, and then SchefSpider sends an email back to the company with a link to a page which hosts an installer for Screen Connect. And we've seen these pages deliver both Windows and Mac OS installers, likely based on the user agent strings of a browser navigating to those pages. We've also tracked a series of callback phishing campaigns. This is a popular tactic that numerous adversaries have used. So the adversary sends an email to you. It says, you have this imminent charge for a TV streaming service or some other internet service. Here's your invoice. The invoice PDF contains a helpful customer service phone number that you are encouraged to dial if you do not want to pay your imminent charge. When you call the alleged customer service number, the operators will send you a second email with a link, in this case to Zoho Assist, which is another RMM tool. And we've seen the adversary use those Zoho Assist sessions to download yet another RMM tool called SuperOps, as well as the WinSCP utility likely to exfiltrate data. I'd like to turn now to some recommendations for hunting RMM tools. And while the examples I provided are specific to some of the most common RMM tools, the principles here apply to basically any tool. So at a foundational level, it's useful to monitor for artifacts that are typical of RMM tools. You would be surprised just how many adversaries continue to use default installer or client names, which typically reference the product itself, right? Screen Connect, TeamViewer, AnyDesk.exe, whatever, very similar to that. Even if you expect one or more of these tools in your environment, you may not expect them to be dropping binaries regularly. So for instance, AnyDesk, as part of normal operations, will write a file called gcapi.dll, but other binaries dropped underneath your AnyDesk process should probably be investigated. Additionally, RMM tools will typically write artifacts of various sorts to a subdirectory within program files, program data, or app data roaming. You see some examples there. The naming tends to reference the vendor or product. From a network perspective, some RMM tools will send a DNS request to a vendor-associated domain. So for instance, Net Support Manager, when it starts up, typically sends a DNS request to geo.netsupportsoftware.com. And Screen Connect almost always connects to a subdomain of the legitimate official screenconnect.com domain. And that's pretty typical even with malicious uses of Screen Connect. At a more advanced level, adversaries may rename their client or installer binaries, change the file paths, so simple hunts like on the former slide may not be as useful in some cases, but you can still monitor for process behavior, that is, artifacts that appear on the command line. So for instance, you see here, ConnectWise Screen Connect will typically launch with a verbose series of parameters, E, Y, H, so on and so forth. And obviously, the particular values will change, but the presence of those parameters can be useful for detecting Screen Connect. Screen Connect can also run manual shell commands that will typically manifest as those run.cmd files on the command line. AnyDesk is typically installed with the install flag and almost always is installed with the silent flag in order to suppress notifications to users. TeamViewer will often run with the configuration or DRE flags, and TeamViewer's helper binaries may appear with the action or log parameters. So in conclusion, eCrime adversaries will almost certainly continue to use legitimate RMM tools in the future due to their potent combination of remote administration capabilities, ease of availability, again, you can just download them from any vendor website, and most importantly, evasion of detections and preventions. So in order to detect them, baseline your network, know what RMM tools you do expect, and then write detections for both hosts and network artifacts, as well as process behaviors. Thanks so much.